Hello, everyone. Welcome to this session. It was a little bit mistitled in the app, so if you're looking for a session on developer experience or on AI context-aware development flows, you're in the right place. I just want to start with sort of the elephant in the room. At Coalesce, there's sort of a tradition of dressing up in costume or doing something over the top or outlandish. That's not this session, right? So if you're looking for that, probably another session is right for you. I happened to find a 2XL Princess Peach costume for Halloween and wanted to get the cost per wear down. When you find a 2XL Princess Peach costume, you have to kind of go with what God's intending for you at that point. So my name's Greg. I want to get a little bit of background in first. Do we all know who this is? Anyone? Shout it out. That's not right. This is Super Plumber. So actually, if you're buying weird costumes on Alibaba, they aren't allowed to use the trademarks. And we aren't allowed to either. We're live streaming this session, and so we have to kind of keep it PC here. So you're going to need to know a few other characters to get through this whole half hour we have together. I'll go left from right. First of all, on the left. Very nice. Holloway anime cartoon cosplay with hat. Sexy men, red, blue, super brother. And then in the middle, purple bad plumber, and then me on the far right, mushroom damsel. But you might also know me as Greg McKeon. I run product here for our developer experience in cloud at DBT. And so we're broadly going to be talking about how we've been improving the developer experience inside of DBT Cloud. You heard a lot about Fusion earlier today at the keynote. You're going to hear a little bit from me about that. You're also going to hear a little bit about some improvements we're making with AI. The best kind of code is the code you don't actually have to write, that AI writes for you. And so we're going to see some demos there of the new agentic development flow with DBT. Then we're going to talk a little bit about how Fusion's making the Studio IDE even better in cloud. And then we're going to talk about my favorite product if you were here last year, you heard a lot about Canvas and how that's expanding the developer tool and letting more and more people build DBT models. But before we do all of that, we also have to get aligned. So do people know where this is from? When I got this image, I was surprised, like what the origin of this grid is. Yeah, it's from Dungeons & Dragons, which I had absolutely no idea. You might expect I had played Dungeons & Dragons. I have not. But one of the things that when you're kind of building these characters here, you have to figure out is how do they relate to who you are as a person, right? And so obviously I'm in the upper left, this lawful good character can do no wrong, but I need to be able to commune with you and communicate with you certain things about the developer experience that might not be great. And so I've started off here as Mushroom Damsel, the true neutral, sort of sits in a castle all day, does very little, but there are other characters I need to know as well. So Luigi, the neutral good, the brother, sort of the foil to Mario. And then we have in the lower right, our chaotic evil, Waluigi, who kind of comes in and messes things up. And then we have you all, right? Pretty neutral right now. We'll see how my bits land, where you might move up to that lawful good corner with me. You might not. We'll see how it goes. All right, so we're through getting to know me. We're through getting all aligned. I mentioned those three things we're going to talk about, the agentic experience inside of the VS Code extension, and that's going to come soon to the Cloud IDE as well. How we're generally thinking about developer experience, sort of how we thought about developer experience in the past inside of the Studio IDE, and how that's changing. And then how we're making everyone a developer with Canvas. So that sort of anyone at your company who wants to come work with DBT can do so. All right, so we first have to get kind of squared away on what developer experience actually is. Before I worked at DBT, I worked at Cloudflare for a little bit on developer experience for JavaScript applications. Before that, I worked at MongoDB, which was a database centered around developer experience. And the question is sort of like, why do we care, right? Why does it actually matter if you have a good time as you're writing code? And there's sort of these three main tenets, right? Great developer experience can help you improve speed, so you can build more quickly. We do this with features like getting our test and build times down, having a quick time to getting the first line of code written, so your initial sort of setup of your environment, how long does that take? A lot of the language server features you heard mentioned from inside of Fusion with some of that SDF technology we acquired. I'm going to use the term LSP here. Does anyone know what that is? LSP, shout it out. I won't do what I did to you with the Mario thing, I promise. Nobody, okay, so it's a language server. And so a language server is a way to compile and understand certain features of a given language. So if you've ever used VS Code before and you see those squigglies, those are all coming from a language server. And so a big part of the innovation of Fusion is providing a language server for DBT so we can understand when your code might be right or wrong. So this powers all of the features you might be used to, like go to reference, go to definition. We'll talk about these a little bit later, but that's a lot of what Fusion is giving us. The second big piece is you can improve quality. right? So you don't want to go ahead and break your pipelines in production. And so with a better developer experience, you run tests more often, you write more tests, you catch things before they even hit CI. And you can get this again through a lot of these LSP features, the autocomplete you have, better test infrastructure, et cetera. And then finally, you can improve collaboration, right? So if you have more people working in your project, more people at your company who can build data products, you can bring more people in, build better things, make more money, the world goes around. So what I kind of want to bring to you today is this idea that AI has profoundly changed what developer experience means. So there are still these three main tenets of wanting to move faster with higher quality and to work together, but you now have to do this in context of sort of AI teammates and kind of corporate mandates, right? So you not only need to ship faster, you now need to do so with fewer resources, right? You now need to not only improve quality, but you also need to do so without sacrificing speed, and now with these AI agents that are submitting changes to your projects as well. And that really gets to the last piece. How do you improve collaboration, not just with human users, but also people who might be an agent, right? And that gets me to not all developers are human. It's time for some agents. And we're going to show you a little bit of the agentic workflow that we've been building out inside of dbt. And so what's really cool about this versus other tools is that it uses context from Fusion to let the underlying LLM write better dbt code and also to answer questions you might have. So you might have seen this inside of the keynote earlier. We're building out a sort of chat-style interface. I'll actually ask one question. Who here uses dbt Copilot today inside of the IDE? OK, a decent number of you. That I would say is a classic non-agentic experience, right? It's very incremental. You go ahead and ask a question, get a response. The frequent feature requests for that product are, let me run this on multiple tests. Let me run this on multiple models. Let me run this across my entire project. And that's what this agent we're going to show you in a second will let you do. Everything you're about to see is in private beta. We're sort of testing this with a small number of customers. If this really resonates with you, come talk to me. And right now, it's in the VS Code extension that already powers Fusion. It will come to Studio soon. All right. So not only are we going to do costumes, we're going to do a live demo. So, and not this live demo. So I'm inside of my VS Code extension. I'm working inside of that flower shop project that we talked through before. Is this big enough to see? Not really. Is this big enough to see? OK. All right, great. And so I'm working inside of a project that is both a Jaffle shop and a flower shop. We took Elias's mom's flower shop. We bought it out. We said we're going to start selling grilled cheese sandwiches. And so if I scroll through the file system here, I can see that back when Elias's mom owned the flower shop, she built out some legacy stored procedures that she used to stock her flower shop. Let me just adjust this. And so this could be a really time-consuming process for me to go through. Ignore my 55 tabs. For me to go through and look at all of these different tables that are being created here, some manual tests that have been written, and go and migrate this over to dbt. So I'm not going to do that. I'm going to go use the new dbt AI agent to go ahead and look at the context of my project, figure out what's going on, and migrate these things for me. And so I've typed out a little prompt here. Can you go ahead and migrate the stored procedure that's inside of this file to proper dbt models with a staging model and then a MART model? We're going to try and just do it on a subset of the models today because this can take a little while to run. And then please add documentations and tests. So I'm going to go ahead and run that. You get this cool little interface where it has my prompt. And then the agent will begin thinking about a plan. Once it has a plan, it will start recursively calling tools. And so this is a chain of tool calls. It can look inside your local file system, which is what it's doing right now. It can go ahead and read CSVs. So in this case, we've stored the data inside of a number of CSVs. It can run the head command to see what those CSVs actually look like. And what's really nice about this is this change is going to go ahead and get built, and I have some time back to myself. And so I'm going to use that to go do a costume change. There is no great way to talk through watching an AI build things on the screen, but we're going to try and do it. So here we go. So it's thinking right now. And you'll notice at the bottom here, I have the ability to auto-approve different operations that it might be doing. So in this case, it is going ahead and reading through these CSV files, getting the top of them. And I'm worried that we are stuck. I may not have Wi-Fi. Really having a Mark Zuckerberg moment here. OK, let me cancel this one. Just double check and see if I have the ability to run this. Because I did get the plan out to start. Definitely have Wi-Fi. Okay. We're going to run that one more time. I think I got stuck on something there. And so what's cool about this is I'm able to recursively call different tools. So I'm going through and actually reading through different directories, getting context about the columns that might be in these different models, and then building up a plan, and then going ahead and taking a look at the actual underlying data. So today that's stored inside seeds locally. That can also use Fusion to go and run the show command and go actually look out into my warehouse and see context from there as well. All right, now we are running. So what's happening here is it's going to start actually writing models out for me. It's created this new folder called Flower Shop, and then it is writing a series of staging models first, and then we'll go ahead and run a few different marts. I do not know how long this is going to take, because I was running this on the full project before, so I'm going to quickly change. And use Chekhov's bag here. There's a bit of a race here between me and the LLM. And me not turning the pants inside out first. All right, so you'll notice now it's going ahead and building out the YAML file that actually will document this model as well. This is one of the great things about using an LLM like this. You actually can go ahead and build out a lot more tests and documentation and context than you'd be able to do manually. Question? So that's actually happening because it's reading the underlying files from the file system. So it is taking a look at what's actually happening upstream. So it's looking at the CSVs, and it's looking at the other models that are in the project. And that's how it's going and building that up. It is not Cursor. It is a different open source tool right now that we're layering a bunch of extra context on top of. But pretty Cursor-like experience. It is client today, yes. Great question. So there's a few different things here. There's one piece which is a few prompts that we've added on. So there's a system prompt that's coming in. There's also the dbt MCP already installed for you and kind of auth handled for you as well. If you want to go out and build this with Klein, you absolutely can. I'd say there's more and more context that's coming on top of that. And so this is batteries included, right, and kind of already set up for dbt. All right, cool. Okay. Klein is taking longer than we thought this would take since I'm done with my costume change in one. But you see the coolest part here, right? Which is that we've finished creating our files. We've created our tests, our documentation, and our different models. And now we're actually calling Fusion commands under the hood. So Klein took a look, basically said, hey, I see that there's a bunch of CSVs in here that are going to need to be loaded before I can actually do anything. Let me run seed on these. And so it's going ahead and running down here. I have done this before. This seed takes a little while, as can happen. So I think we'll give it another 5 seconds, and then we will cut over to the next phase of the demo. Seed is a slow command at times. Much faster in Fusion, though. All right. My patience has run out. Okay, so if I were to finish this out, right, I would finish running dbt seed. I would have everything loaded up into my warehouse for me. And then what's really cool about this, and some of that prompting we were mentioning before, I will always go ahead and run a Fusion compile at the end. I'll run a Fusion test to make sure that this code actually works. And that's a really big piece when you're developing with AI, is being able to actually understand that the change you've made is safe to push up and safe for someone to go ahead and review. And so that's a big piece of this here. Not going to get my seeds done. All right, back to my slides. Okay, cool. And what's really cool about this is there's a lot more we can do. So there's a lot of data-specific work and data-specific UI, honestly, that we can add into a tool like this to help you move even faster. And so the first piece I'll show here on the left is the ability to go ahead and create a PR directly from within Klein. So this is showing me the actual files that are going to change, the actual lines that are changing within that file, and Klein is sort of doing the full operation here, bringing everything together and actually opening the change up for me. We also have looked a lot at profiling. So you're going to see this view inside of Canvas as well. It's a really quick and easy way to get an understanding of what the data actually looks like in an underlying table. And so we have a bunch of work here to pull that in to this AI agent to let you know the actual shape of the changes it's made for you. And then finally, the ability to have context and memory. So we've thought a lot about this and the ability to have context that sort of travels wherever you go. So if you use a platform-specific AI tool, in a lot of cases, the context is trapped inside of some vector store that they've built out. And what's pretty funny about LLMs is they're actually really good at storing context in like markdown files, right? And so we have some thoughts on how this context could flow back into the main DBT project. People have proposed like a context top-level folder, the AI going ahead and actually making changes for you in that folder, and then actually pulling everything together. All right, cool. So we're going to transition out of the VS Code extension stuff into Studio. Like I said, that agentic experience is coming to Studio soon, but the prototype right now is built out for the VS Code extension. All right, so to get here, I kind of have to take you through how we've historically thought about developer experience inside of the Studio IDE. The Studio IDE is an old product. First commit was back in like 2019. I started at DBT like 2.5 years ago. And it hasn't changed a ton in the first like 3 or 4 years of its life, right? We built sort of this differentiated experience that was a little bit different from VS Code, had more guardrails on it, limited some of the things you could do, and really focused on kind of the easy button for DBT, right? If you need to make a small change or if you need to go ahead and develop with guardrails on, Studio IDE is great to do that. And part of the reason why we did this is because good developer experience for DBT is generally a superset of just good developer experience, right? So if we want to build a great IDE for DBT, we have to start by building out a great IDE. And a great IDE would work with Python or JavaScript or sort of any other language. So we need sort of this common foundation to build on top of. And so the way we approached this in the past was we're going to build something that's sort of our own, but sort of not at the same time. And now, we think about the developer experience in the Studio IDE as us launching dark mode. So we're excited to announce that piece. I'm messing with you all. This is a Waluigi bit. We're not. We are super excited that we've launched dark mode last year, but that is not what I'm here to talk to you about today. Instead, I'm here to talk to you about how DBT Fusion now means that we are going to build the best developer experience, period. So even if there's a bunch of work to do, we think the developer experience is the most important part of DBT and sort of what differentiates our cloud product from other offerings. And we're going to build things that aren't necessarily opinionated just for opinion's sake, but actually go ahead and adhere to sort of best practices and things you might be familiar with in tools like VS Code. And so this means we've got a whole lot of functionality that's coming with Fusion on the Studio IDE. The first thing I want to point out, everything that Elias showed on stage earlier today, all of that LSP functionality, the vast majority of that is in Studio right now. We'll talk about a few things that aren't there today. And so that is go to definition, go to reference, so the ability to define a CT and jump back to where that is, the ability to preview a given CT, type checking, auto-completion, early compilation, sort of all of that goodness that you saw from Elias's talk all here. But then it's a lot of other things as well that people have sort of been asking us for years, and we've had bad answers for why we haven't built. The main one being the actual architecture for the Studio IDE is very different from something like VS Code. And we've brought those two things closer together, in part to be more at parity with the VS Code extension we've built out for Fusion. And that means we're going to get a few great features landing either immediately or in the next couple weeks. That's a problems tab, so the ability to go and see all of the different pieces of your project that might not be compiling. The ability to do multi-pane editing, so the ability to have multiple different windows open at once and drag those around, and as well as autosave. So super long requested feature, the ability to automatically save a file and sort of update the LSP just on typing. One thing we've already shipped as well is command history, so you're now no longer in a state where every time the IDE restarts, you lose everything you've been working on. And we'll get to those IDE restarts in a second, because we've made startup faster, and we are moving towards having invisible backend restarts. So if you're an IDE user, one of the most painful things is having this like pop-up that comes up that says, please restart the IDE about every hour you're inactive. We're getting rid of that. So you're going to be able to have just a front end that automatically reconnects and connects back to the backend. Some other greatest hits that are coming with our move towards VS Code, the ability to do find in files, and the ability to have configurable workspace settings that match what you have in VS Code. All right, that is me breathlessly going through the Studio IDE. If you want to chat more about that, I'm down to talk about Studio anytime. Another last question I have for you, which is who should good developer experience apply to? I'm going to answer it myself. Everyone who works with data, right? Everyone who works with data shares a common set of challenges like the need for governed source of truth assets, or a path for merging things into production, CI/CD for testing, and we think that all of these depend on the things that dbt gives you, like Git, version control, standardization on SQL. And this is really why we built out dbt Canvas, to replace this sort of ad hoc, local, drag and drop tooling with a governed way that always has a path to production. This Canvas, if you're not familiar, will generate Jinja and SQL code based on drag and drop configuration that you have, and it combines the flexibility of drag and drop tooling that you might be used to with something like Alteryx I forget, I'm blanking on the names, Informatica, et cetera, with the governance of dbt and that standardization on SQL. And so I'm going to show you a little bit of Canvas if you're not familiar. I'm back inside my flower shop. And this is the Canvas UI. You can see I have a number of nodes laid out here. On the left, I have some upstream nodes that represent tables inside of my warehouse. When I open up one of these tables, I can go ahead and see what it actually looks like. So I can go ahead and see the different data that's inside of it, get a preview here. I also can do a profile. This may break due to a known bug, live demos. If it does not, it did. Now we'll go fix the bug together. So I'm going to create a new workspace. And I'm going to go grab the Model Explorer. And so this Model Explorer is how I go ahead and search through my data and see what is actually available to me inside of Canvas. And we are taking a look at Elias's mother's, flower shop, flower orders. And so what's cool about this is I go and select a model. I immediately see the columns that are available to me here. So I can see if this would be the right thing for me to be building on top of. And when I go ahead and select that model, now I can go ahead and do a preview. And this profiling piece that we showed off inside of the LLM, inside of the AI agent, will show up as well. This one will work. And I'll be able to show you what the data actually looks like here. So you can see that Elias's mom really works on 10 different occasions, pretty evenly distributed, almost as if generated by a random number generator. And very few people are using promo codes. Or there's only 8 different promo codes also randomly generated, sorry. So this is cool because I can start to get an understanding for Elias's mom's flower shop pretty quickly, what sort of business she's doing. Seems like a money laundering front, but that's all right. And so one other thing I want to show you all, something we shipped recently inside Canvas, is the ability to mix in CSV uploads. And this has been like an oddly controversial feature. But the reason we built this out is because in a lot of cases, if you're doing drag and drop tooling locally, there's some data that the central data team doesn't know about that's actually critical, right? So it's like there's some load-bearing Excel file somewhere in your organization that you probably don't know about that someone is mixing together and using to generate, I don't know, quarterly revenue, right? And so the way you find out about that is by giving them a governed path to production. And so what we were seeing was customers who wanted to take something local, upload it, mix it in with warehouse data, and then see what the end result would be. And they wanted to do that in a way where they wouldn't actually impact production and things would still be safe. So in this case, I have a raw CSV. It's going to be a little bit slow to upload, but it contains some additional order data for this flower shop. And what we're going to do here is we're actually going to use dbt seed to load that CSV into the warehouse schema. It's going to take a sec. And then we're going to automatically generate a staging model that goes ahead and wraps that CSV. And so what's cool about this is I'm getting the governance by default, right? I'm getting the best practices here. That CSV is not actually going to become a dbt seed. We didn't want to go that far. We didn't want to actually have PII potentially in your Git repo forever and ever. And so instead, what we are going to do is when we go and make a PR, you'll find out, hey, there's a missing source here, right? And I need to go ahead and identify where did this raw flower order CSV come from? How do we load it in a reliable way? Perhaps with Fivetran. So now that I have this file uploaded, another cool feature we've added into Canvas recently is the ability to reference what we call a local model. So this is an instantiation of a model that's still inside of your Canvas project, ability to pull these two together. So I'm going to go ahead and take that CSV. And now I want to go ahead and join these two together so that I have a combined view of the world. And so I'm going to go grab the join operator, wire this together. And then zoom in, zoom in. Go take a look and see what I want to go ahead and actually join on. And I can see from these incoming columns, luckily for me, that CSV already contains a flower ordered ID. I probably want to join on that. I'm going to go ahead and do a left join here, and then go ahead and run. And then after this runs, it'll run a preview under the hood. And one other cool thing we've launched is the ability to see where most of my values are coming in from, right? So seeing what everything is joining on. And so everything joins here because I created this data from a subset of the first set of data. But you can actually go ahead and see how many rows are actually matching here and kind of what side of the join is dominating. If you've done something crazy, you have some Cartesian explosion or something like that, you'll be able to see it here. OK, cool. So that is the bulk of what we launched inside Canvas recently. There's a lot more coming here down the road that I will talk about in a second when I get back to my slides. OK, great. So there are a few other things we didn't talk about there. The ability to have a few new operators in Canvas. This is something that's been really impactful working with customers on. You all have lots of different ways you want to transform data. We're bringing those into Canvas and letting them generate SQL. Big piece here has been pivot. We've added Jinja support in more places. So if you want to go ahead and call a Jinja function, you can do that in more places than before. You just saw CSV uploads. And then long term, we're working on bringing that collaborative agent, or sorry, that agentic AI experience into Canvas as well. And then one thing that we've heard from you all is really around multiplayer. So a lot of times when you're doing data work, you want to be able to bring multiple people into the same project. Maybe to review a pull request, maybe to just show someone something you're working on. And so we're going to make Canvas multiplayer and let multiple people access that at once, sort of expose it out to the rest of the organization. All right, and O'Reilly did not know I'd be in costume for this, but they would like me to tell you a little bit about this report that they've put out called Structured for Intelligence. It talks a little about why AI needs governed, discoverable, and provisioned data. You can go ahead and scan the link here to get a download. And please don't tell them I was in costume this entire time. I don't think they would have liked their product placement. All right, is everyone who wants a picture of this got it? Here's what I'll do. I'll go to my goodbye slide, and then I'll go back. All right, so thank you all so much for coming. I really appreciate you all making the trip out. Coalesce is the best time of the year, and I hope you have a great time here in Las Vegas for the next few days. Thank you.